All right, welcome, Mr. Olawale. We were talking about giving a balanced view about this closure. Go ahead, please.
Yes, the balanced view I was actually alluding to has to do with looking at it from both sides of the flip coin. First, the issue of insecurity that has bedeviled the nation. We know borders are porous and there are inflows of arms through the borders, which was one of the reasons for the border closure. The second one is the massive smuggling that's also undermining our economy. When you look at it from that perspective and the gains that has been recorded from August when the border was shut, you want to commend the initiative. And indeed, it was very laudable. However, when you look at the flip side, you don't solve a problem by creating other problems. And even if other problems arise in the course of solving that problem, you have to re-strategize and do a review to make sure that you eliminate all those new challenges. What do I mean? In the course of implementing the laudable program of closing the border, you discover that the purchasing power of the ordinary citizens in Nigeria have been massively eroded. How? And mind you, one of the major responsibilities of government is the citizens' welfare.
How were they eroded?
For instance, if a typical household spends over 70% of his income on food, which basically is subsistence, and is left with little or nothing to take care of other basic needs, you know there are issues for concern there. Because, for instance, I know some people will argue that don't we have other options? Must it be rice that Nigerians must eat? But it's Nigeria's staple food. And beyond that, if before the border closure, a bag of rice was going for 14 to 15,000 naira, and now you cannot get even the local rice that we are trying to protect the manufacture, the growing and the sales of, you cannot get it for less than 24 to 25,000 naira now.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, there could be many reasons. First is the inadequate supply. In other words, there is a gap. And naturally, when there is scarcity of a commodity, naturally the price skyrockets. I think that is the major reason. Because we are under the illusion that we are self-sufficient, especially with regards to production of food. We are not. And like I said, it's an illusion. It is desirable that we get there, but we are not there yet.
Some people would even consider that a good challenge for your members
yes.
of your association
yes.
to take on. Because I would remember, I'm sure you would as well,
yes.
when we first got into this Fourth Republic,
yes.
the Obasanjo government at that time banned some products,
Absolutely.
which created some local industries, created employment automatically and all of that. So one would have expected that would be good news for your members.
Of course, which is also why, as a representative body of organized businesses, we encourage our members on backward integration. In other words, let us look inward to create employment by also investing in our local products, both manufacturing and agribusiness and so on and so forth. Yes, it is. But Rome was not built in a day. It's gradual. Because, like I said, if, for instance, you have local rice at 25,000 naira, whereas those are the lower rung of the economy or pay in Nigeria are badly hit by it. It means their welfare is already...
Yeah, Mr. Onasanya, could you speak to that particularly? Because, I mean, there's usually several perspectives about why local rice has to cost this much, they say, as a result of this border closure. Do you think that's the case?
Well, thank you very much. The reason why, for now, in relative terms, local rice is still a bit high in cost is because of the cost of production of local rice. And the fact that, you know, there isn't as yet enough support for local farmers the area of tractorization, provision of inputs, and they need capacity building, for good agronomic practices and so on and so forth, using the right varieties. So there's still a whole lot that government needs to do to support rice farmers. There's no doubt about that.
Can we say we're self-sufficient?
No. I don't think anybody ever said that we're self-sufficient in rice production, or indeed in any other. No. I can say, because I've been in government. I was in government before I retired and set up my own consultancy business. We are not self-sufficient, but we have the capacity to produce rice from the mangrove swamp ecologies of the Niger Delta down to, up to the Sahel regions of the north. We can produce rice. All the agroecological zones in this country can produce local rice.
When you say government needs to do something, sorry to butt in, sir. When you say government needs to do a lot more, what else does government need to do for private businesses like rice farming?
Oh, thank you very much. Rice is a water-loving crop. It requires good land preparation, and moisture levels. So government needs to do much more in the area of providing tractor services, land clearing equipment. I know that, notice that the word here is much more. A lot is being done. Things are being done, but we are not there yet,
When you're in government, do you know of any targets in terms of when and how much more we need to do to get us self-sufficient, and did they give any targets to your knowledge?
Yeah, for example, this country, the farming sector, the agricultural sector is highly under-tractorized. There's inadequate extension services. The public sector extension services, which the ADPs were good at, were created for, that is the agricultural development programs. Because of competing needs, and these people, the extension agents are aging, they have aged, rather. Many of them have retired, and they are not replaced. There's inadequate succession, and that because, wage bills are increasing, they're competing needs. So the extension services, provision of infrastructure, equipment, all of these things, were begging for attention right at the same time. So right now, this country, you find, thousands of farmers depending on just one tractor. And yet, the standard rate is that, you should have at least, something like 100 farmers, can, in a cooperative, will be able to manage 2 to 4 tractors. Well, so we are not there yet in terms of the targets, the best practices. So, but I want to hasten to add that for once in my life, in my professional career as an agriculturist, I would say that this government has begun to take the right decisions.
Which are?
Such as?
Disclosure?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we could now take this, because the closure is just beyond the rice component.
Exactly.
Because as much as there may be many positives to it, but some of the concerns that a lot of other people have raised, for instance, we just heard there from the immigration boss saying people need to come into the country with the right documents. Do we have to close the border to ensure that they come in with the right documents? Why do we have immigration service? Well, even with concerning the rice smuggling and such other concerns, we have customs officers who are manning those places as we speak. So what are we doing or saying or telling the country about those persons who their jobs, their primary responsibility is to ensure that those things don't happen?
Yeah, I quite agree with you that, we have to hold people accountable, people who have responsibilities to take care, to man the borders and do their jobs. We're not there yet in that particular area. But I'm speaking from the point of view of a farmer. I'm a farmer, I'm a consultant, I work with farmers, I know their needs. Farmers are happy.
Okay, if I could take it a little further, pardon me, Mr. Olawale, we'll come to you. But the thing about this too is that when they say, what are we doing beyond closing the border? For the farmers, they've raised concerns about access to credit. They've raised several concerns about having some protectionist policies to ensure that even when the borders are closed or when they eventually get open, those goods don't come in here and then we can't compete because those other countries get loans at maybe single digits. Of course, they'll be cheaper when they come in here. Have we taken those steps beyond this border closure to address it so that farmers can be happy?
Yeah, we are. Government is. Like I keep saying, we're not there yet. You're aware of the Anchor Borrowers Program, of the federal government, the CBN intervention, interventions in the agricultural sector, looking at single-digit interest rates for farmers. There are a number of opportunities out there. There's NERSA, Nigeria, incentive-based risk sharing for agricultural lending. Commercial banks are being encouraged by the CBN to lend towards agriculture, which is something they were not willing to do. I mean, this particular, administration, particularly the CBN governor, has been, in the forefront of pushing and trying to get his former colleagues, to lend towards agriculture. So there are a number of interventions and programs where farmers have access to credit, at very conducive rates. So these things are going on, but...
Can employers quarrel with that? We're getting loans at single-digit interest rate now?
Let me just add that government has done a lot with regards to issue of incentives and issue of support to ensure that agricultural sector develops. But they've not done enough. Why did I say this? You say there is the need for us to have a holistic approach to issues. Proper planning, appropriate policy is not just at the whims and caprices of an individual like the CBN governor or whatever. What is the policy direction? What are those incentives that are there? What are those inputs to support agriculture so that people know ab initio before investing in it? We don't have holistic program at that. That's one. Then the other aspect of it that I really want to make an input is the fact that despite the fact that we've recorded massive success and what we can say are landmark achievements with regards to this border closure, I also dare say that in the first instance, it is due to the inefficiency and ineffectiveness of agencies of government that are supposed to man our borders. And you have to ask yourself that if we are, which is what we have been advocating all along, that look, if we have issues with our borders, what are those challenges the custom, for instance, and the immigration are facing that makes our borders so porous, that ordinarily should not necessitate even the closure of the border? What are those things that government can do to mitigate or ensure that these agencies of government actually live up to expectation?
Do your members have reason to interface with, immigration, with customs in the course of their businesses?
Of course.
Okay. Has any one of your members, observed any of these untoward activities of these agencies that you talk about?
It's about capacity.
Capacity on
the part of these agencies of government to be able to deliver on their responsibility.
Has there been any need or any way in which maybe your organization or that organization in particular reported this to anyone?
Of course, in our continuous engagement with government, these are issues that we have tabled severally. And you also know...
What kind of reactions do you get?
No, government will tell you they are doing their best and they will definitely improve on it. But what I'm also saying is that, for instance, when you talk of the custom, let me take it one after the other. They talk of the extensive length of our border, which is true. They talk of inadequate logistics, like vehicles to patrol the borders and so on and so forth. And at times they even talk of inadequate manpower. These are examples of issues that government can take one after the other and address. Now, there is also the aspect, because, when we talk about border closure, we are always quick to zero in on the benefits. For instance, the issue of the improved revenue generation to government's coffers, the issue of improved sale of local rice, which is inadequate, by the way. But what of the adverse effects on even the little exports that we do? I can tell you authoritatively that the processing time for exports to allow trucks of Nigerian manufactured goods out of the Nigerian borders to these neighboring countries, the little we manufacture, the processing time is actually appalling. Now, you have trucks that are there for 2-3 days.
At the border?
Yes, at the border. And
now or previously?
Now, after the closure, this is the closure dispensation. Now what we are saying is that, yes, we understand the need to monitor and to close, but that does not mean that you cannot improve on the process and ensure that goods move freely and seamlessly out of the country. That's one. Secondly, because of delays in processing as well, there are instances where perishable goods that has very limited lifespan are getting bad at that same border. And many a times it's even needless making attempts to go out of the country with those perishable goods. And these are even agricultural goods as well. So what we are saying is that while you are celebrating the positive side, you should also look closely at the adverse impact on businesses and on a very large scale to say that, look, we don't create more problem by solving a particular problem.
Okay, but what would you say how would you say this closure, this exercise,
yes,
is likely to impact on the AfCFTA deal that we just agreed to?
Well, like every one of us knows that I think the major problem, which was one of the concerns that we have expressed before we signed the AfCFTA agreement, was that we do not want a situation where Nigeria becomes a dumping ground for foreign goods.
Which is what
the issue of rule of origin, enforcement of the rule of origin is very, very important and fundamental. In other words, it's supposed to be to encourage trade on goods within Africa. In other words, Benin Republic, Chad, or Niger.
Okay, we'll come back to this
yes.
and get your concluding thoughts in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. It's our concluding moments now, talking about the border closure, particularly the extension, which at the moment stands at January. Anything can happen. We could announce additional extension. Because, I mean, if again you're listening to that, the Controller for Customs is saying that banditry has come down as a result of border closure. I then wonder, so are we going to permanently close the border to tackle banditry? So what about those other illegal routes with which, through which they come in? Is the police authorities going to blame it on the border opening if we eventually open it and the question and it rises? You know, so that's why I ask, what was the real intention? So people don't take this as though it was a rash decision. But maybe I should take it from your agri perspective. The gains notwithstanding, when the borders are eventually opened, what kind of impact do you think it will have if we put in place anything whatsoever to ensure that local business, agri sector thrives in this country?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Now, I would be an advocate of an additional extension, beyond January. Now, rice needs between 3 to 4 months to grow. The border was first closed in August, to Benin Republic, and thereafter October. This is November. A crop that needs, it's from 115 days to like 120 125 days, 128 days, 130 days. The varieties that are being pushed, for farmers now.
Jump in.
So,
did your sector get any notification prior to this closure that this is going to happen, this is what we want to achieve, while we close it, such that when we meet our targets, we will then reopen it, such that you seek an extension?
Well, there was the notice was pretty short, I would say, but I can only speak for I am based in Ogun State, and where I am. I imagine that I'm sure the chairman of the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria would have been informed, and all the state counterparts, and so on and so forth. So, but I agree with you that the notice wasn't long enough. But that's why I would advocate. I wouldn't want to see a situation where the border is reopened suddenly. Because the farmers need time. Agriculture.
So when you say you seek you like an extension, they need time. Time for
the
what
crops
exactly?
to grow.
Is it just for the crops to grow? No measures, no policies?
No. While this border closure has stimulated production, stimulated it. We wouldn't see the gains immediately now. We can only see them when we have ample time to produce more goods, more rice, which farmers can mill and sell.
Right. So, Mr. Olawale, what do we need to do to sustain the gains, the plethora of gains?
I believe in the first instance it should have even been part of the essence of closure of the border.
Which is?
In other words, why are we closing the border? Is it for us to have enough time to execute, to have a holistic policy, to have plans and how to execute them? With regards to the issue of proliferation of arms, we know the border can't be closed forever. Now, if we open the border, what have we put in place to ensure that all those issues are taken care of?
What would you
suggest? Is it, for instance, like I said, to build the capacity of our custom officers to ensure that we have a good relationship between them and the border community so that they can also help them with regards to community policing of the borders because of the outstretched length of our borders? Is it with regards to providing more logistics for them? I don't know. There are several things that could be done to ensure that they perform effectively.
But the customs also says that, look, this January deadline that's been given doesn't necessarily mean that the border is going to be open. So
we know.
What are you
and that's what I'm saying, that you say the length of closure, the duration of closure should be determined or predicated on what government intends to do to arrest all those challenges. Because if you are not doing anything to ensure that when the border eventually opens, because we are just thinking of the short-term gains now. Yes, there is more revenue to the customs. Yes, where the issue of fuel subsidy has drastically reduced. What happens when you open the border? Now, what is it that you are going to do and put? And that's what we should actually be working on now. What is it that we are actually going to do to ensure that now we can beat our chest and say, yeah, we can open the border, all will be well. But we seem not to be working on that. If we are not sharing those information with the populace. And even if government is also working underground, there is the need for them to consult widely to get the perspective of Nigerians who also should know, okay, what can we do to ensure that we arrest all these issues, and when the borders are open, Nigeria will not necessarily have to start thinking of shutting the borders again.
So, Mr. Onasanya, for those who think that this has largely been about government revenue, government has been thumping their chest about how much more revenue they have made, but not seeing the organized private sector as much be or lead the front lines in terms of the gains, because we still don't have uninterrupted power supply for goods produced, or more goods to be produced. We're still, because when the borders are opened, those same customs officials will still be there. The conditions that we've given, it is our own officials in here that will still enforce and ensure that those countries are meeting the conditions that we have given. So what is there for anyone to be happy about if we haven't heard any improvement or any measures taken for those officials who are manning those areas in the country?
I would want to believe. I believe that government in its wisdom, and I mean, any rational government would, in the meantime, given the latitude that this particular exercise has created, would be carrying out some quick reforms and, you know, doing what they need to, the needful, so that there can be efficiency and effectiveness, you know, for all those who man those sectors. But let's remind ourselves that this is just closure of land borders, isn't it?
It's not just,
you know,
businesses are affected.
Yeah, I know.
Who are doing legitimate businesses don't have any communication what to do. Their businesses are being frustrated. So those
but it's not all about land. We still have the seaports. We still have the airports. You know, it doesn't mean that we've completely shut ourselves in. You know, there's still, you know, trade going on. You know, so let's
those countries too. If they shut their borders against our businesses, how is it going to tell us?
Chamberlain, Nigeria essentially is a consuming nation. We all know that. We're not there yet in terms of production. So this is trying to create fair trade here rather than free trade. You know, we want to try and shut our doors, protect the local industry, stimulate production so that we can get there. And I would like to see this not just, you know, a flash in the pan.
We don't even know if these officials who have closed the border eat local rice. We don't even know.
we don't know, but that's what we want. We want to force our people to eat local rice. We want to, and that's what you
do. We need to force them or make it very attractive and compelling? Yeah.
It's a combination of the two. We don't really. The reason why rice price is very high in this country is because of the preference, consumer preference, because of the appearance, because of the consistency.
Why can't we do that here?
You know, yeah, we're there. There are a number of processing mills have sprung up. A number of mills are out there.
It's even disturbing.
And all in the space of...
it's going to be disturbing.
You know,
so much to say, really.
It has to do with issues of making our business competitive. And that also goes for agricultural sector, manufacturing sector, and everything.
I agree with that.
And if your businesses are not competitive, even if you shut your border 100 times, definitely you will be at the receiving end. The issue of we are a consuming nation. What are we doing? What are the incentives? What are those things that we put in place to ensure that businesses are competitive and we can produce? You've just touched on the issue of infrastructure. You've touched on the even regulatory strangleholds on businesses is an issue. And these are issues that government needs to address gradually. Deliberate policies must be put in place. Thank God for the ease of doing business and what PEBEC is doing. It's commendable. But even then, there are still agencies of government that are working at cross purpose against all those laudable interests. So when our businesses are competitive, through deliberate efforts and policies of government, and implementation is also important, then you start seeing a reversal of all this issue of we are consuming nation. Then even, like I said, even the little exports that are going on is being frustrated at the borders.
Okay, well, we hope that they do a lot with the feedback that they get. But I want to thank Mr. Timothy Olawale, who is the DG of Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, that's NECA, as well as Mr. Ibikunle Onasanya, who is the MD CEO of Agri Business Services, also a consultant for AfCFTA. Thank you both for coming on today.
You're welcome.
Well, back in a moment, we'll turn our attention to another matter entirely, so do stay with us.